Okay, how, since you say we have 9, we'll call. I'll call the meeting as Isabel County Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee to order. First up, we have approval of the agenda. Is there any additional agenda items that need to be added?
I don't care.
Administrator?
No,
No.
sir.
Okay, seeing none, we'll move on with the agenda items as presented. First up is a call to the public. Is there anybody in the room here that would like to speak to the committee at this time? Seeing none, is there anybody online or on the phone?
There is not at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, there will be another opportunity towards the end of the meeting to make a comment. With that, we will proceed on the agenda items as presented. Okay, first up, we have consider approving the amendment between the Isabel County Sheriff Office and the Mid-Michigan College to amend the agreement for law enforcement services entered into between both parties on December 4th, 2018, and so replace the amended dated March 4th, 2021, and authorize the board chair to sign the same. And we have the sheriff with us today. And
Unfortunately, very timely today with events in Lansing. So our school resource officer program at Mid-Michigan College has been successful. We've had a couple of special deputies, a couple of retired guys that are in there for presence and response and whatever else needs to occur. The school has been satisfied and happy with that program. They do the same thing in Clare. So our counterparts of Clare County, I communicate quite often with them. They actually had some conversations with them and decided that because it was a successful program, they wanted to raise it from the $20 to the $24.48, which would help recruitment. We have one that wants to retire back out. We're trying to find somebody to fill that spot. In addition, they wanted to go from the 40 hours Monday through Thursday to 50 hours Monday through Friday and cover the whole week. So we do have one SRO that's there that said they'll work the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So that's great. Still trying to find a Monday, Tuesday person. We have somebody there right now, but the person there wants to leave. So the entire amount is reimbursed. We don't have any out-of-pocket expenses for this program. Provides services to the college and gives us presence there. So it's a pretty easy one.
you go from 40 to 50 hours. I see you have the same 2 deputies work the same.
Yeah.
So will you have like 3 now, or how's that?
No, so one will work 30 hours, one will work 20 hours.
Okay.
So, yeah, and they are, like I said, they are special deputy assignments. They're not road patrol. They're not ship bitted into those positions. So they just stay on those. So we've been successful and found some of these folks as they retire, they want to work a few more years and keep their certification active, and it works great. And they're typically more, I don't want to say senior, but more experienced law enforcement, and they can manage situations pretty good and keep their calm. And it's a pretty good gig. Any complaints that come in, our guys from the road, Grossman Road, handle those calls, so they really don't even have to take complaints. They just got to be there for presence and response. So it's a pretty good thing. And I've recently had some conversations with the school, nothing to do with this, but they're looking for more active violent incident training, which we've been doing a lot lately of throughout the community. So I'm guessing we'll probably be in there real soon. So
I guess I don't have any questions about concerning the hours, because I know I've been getting stuff. They've been changing the work requirement rules for stuff, and I see they went back to court. So there's some always doing on 30 hours. So I was just wondering if that was gonna.
I don't think 30 hours breaches anything past full-time benefits and requirements and anything.
We kept part-time at 29 because 30 hours does trigger the Affordable Care Act, to where we have to give them health benefits. So we would want them to average 29 or less.
Well, there was some new regulations at 30, but now it's back into speed challenge. So
Is it per week, or is it gauged by the entire year? Because they don't, during the summer breaks and stuff, they're not on, like there's.
Affordable Care Act's not that straightforward. So they'll
Yeah.
give you like look back periods where you can do a year look back. So then it's a year. You can do a 6 months look back. So then it's 6 months, but it's kind of that rolling average. So you can't do 6 months on, 6 months off and average a year. You can't do that, right? So it's that rolling average where they're kind of always watching it.
I don't think it's a heavy lift to pull it back to 29 hours.
If they're 30, 20, 30, 20 consistently, they're not gonna average
Well,
over
it'd be 20,
29.
want to be consistent 20, want to be consistent 30.
So we need
gotta
to make that
rotate.
one consistent 29 and not 30.
All right.
Just because.
Yeah, and then, well, and, you know, our policy speaks to that as well, or at least past practice does if it's not in policy.
I thought it was 32 hours. So I thought we were safe. So
I believe 30 is the Affordable Care Act cap, and that's why we keep it at 29.
yeah, I'll
We
reach out.
can investigate that further or look, or, you know, talk about it further if you want to, because obviously once they start working, we're gonna need to.
I know we were re-looking at some of our. And we got a bunch of stuff in it, and then also I said, well, they said, hold on, because they're re-looking at it again, and it's going on there, so you don't need to enforce this until we get back to you. That's why I was asking the question.
Oh,
and
great question, spark good conversation.
I don't know as if the Leo there wants to go down that path either. So to deal with all that, I mean, they already have insurances and things lined up, so. I'll let me, if we can confirm that, or if that's, you know, we're 100% sure on that, we'll reach back out to college to just change it to 29.
I'll confirm. I'll
Yeah, I
confirm
don't
that.
think
and
we'll
get
have a
back
problem
to
with them coming in an hour later, leaving an hour earlier or something. So
you. Right, right.
it would require, but I can have that new one signed by their president before the meeting, I'm sure.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
yeah.
Sorry, that's the only question I have.
All right, good question. All right, I'll move that we bring this forward to the regular session next Tuesday, the consideration of amendment between Isabella County Sheriff's Office and Mid-Michigan College. Amendment agreement law enforcement services entered into between both parties on December 4th, 2018, and shall replace the amendment dated March 4th.
I will support that. Is there any more discussion on that? Seeing no, see the vote, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose the same. We'll move this forward to the work session then.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have consider approving the salary of the Isabel County Public Defender position as a non-union employee, wage scale page 19.5, and the salary of the Isabella County Chief Assistant Public Defender position as a non-union employee and wage scale pay grade 17.5, effective in the current pay period in regards to the implementation of Michigan Indigent Defense Commission, the MIDC Standard 8. We were just talking about simplifications here. We have public defender Hausman here with us today, so.
Good morning.
Good morning. So as we all know, you know, back in 2013, the state passed the Indigent Defense Act. And then in 2017 was when we had to first come up with a plan to implement those first 4 standards. When they first created the act, there were 8 standards. Our plan has always been to be in compliance with those standards. We've done that from the get-go, so that every year when we're creating a grant proposal, we don't have to change what we're doing in order to comply with a new standard. So from the get-go, we've been in compliance with all 8 standards. What happened was they passed the first 5 standards. So the first 4 were always in compliance dating back to 2019. Standard 5 was passed with our most recent grant, which was independence from the judiciary, which essentially brought over the appointment of attorneys from the court's responsibility to our responsibility. And then completely out of order, MIDC implemented Standard 8, which refers to rates and payment of salaried public defenders as well as hourly public defenders. We've always, going back to our model of delivery, we have our public defender's office and then our contract. And we've always tried to have that 75%, 25% split. And we've always paid our hourly attorneys with what was incorporated in Standard 8 before it was passed. MIDC passed Standard 8 in October, meaning that we had to be in compliance with it or had a plan to be in compliance with it with our new grant application. Our new grant application is due at the end of April. So it's not at the forefront of my brain right now, but it's starting to creep up there. And so beginning with our fiscal year 24 grant, we will have to be in compliance with standard 8. Meaning that we have to rely on the language of standard 8 as presented and passed. What that language does is it says that what we pay our hourly contract attorneys is appropriate. It's what's listed in the standard. However, it tells us that our rates for salaried public defenders should be increased. And it tells us that the rates that we should look at, or the comparables that we should look at, is the Attorney General's office. In the past, I know most counties, including ourselves, have always relied on similarly situated counties, dependent on income and population size and everything like that. But the language of this law specifically says that we should be looking at the Assistant Attorney General's position. And so what we did was we looked at those positions, including the job responsibilities and job duties, and kind of plugged in where they should be at on that schedule. Thankful for Chris Whitmer for helping me out with that, because she's the one I rely on for my math. And so what that did is essentially place, the chief assistant and myself on a proposed pay scale, that's 17.5 and 19.5. Those two positions have not ever been on a pay scale. They've been set and largely left alone from what they were originally set at back in 2019. I'll say I'm entirely uncomfortable with this conversation. It seems self-serving, and I realize that, and I've expressed that to Nicole in the past.
And I've expressed my support in him bringing this forward with his position. It doesn't make any sense to bring one forward without the other.
And our plan, we will have to, obviously, with our new grant proposal, bring those other two positions, the assistants and the senior assistants, up to those levels in that proposed pay scale. And my thought process with doing one now and doing one with that new grant proposal is that would be go into effect on October 1st with the new fiscal year. Because I know bringing us along forward and doing that would obviously impact other county departments. And so I think that there's obviously, I think the appropriate way to do it is to change these two now and then know that we have to change those other ones with our new grant proposal as well.
And I would say, why to bring these forward now and not the others? The others have been on a scale. It's kind of like, remember when Sheriff brought forward Deputy Will Bailey the last round, and we got him off of this salary that only has a COLA. Well, he didn't even have a COLA increase happening, but that's what's happening with these two positions, right? They're not on a scale. They weren't part of the wage study. They were just kind of off by themselves. And in September of this year, correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, we're going to have a situation out there where someone is supervising someone who makes more than they do.
Correct.
because of that chief deputy salary being out here off, not on a scale. To take my position, for example, when I was deputy administrator in the wage study, it was very popular to set the chief deputy salaries at a percentage of their supervisor. So my salary was set at a percentage of my predecessor, right? Well, what if you had hired someone else who makes less than Margaret, which I do, but I had stayed as deputy? Would I then make less because I'm a percentage of that position? So would you have then made me less if you'd have hired someone different as administrator? The structure doesn't make sense. It can't. You can't sustain it.
And that's what
is her
originally-
incentive to stay to supervise someone that makes more than her? That just.
And that's originally
Doesn't hold
what brought this to my attention, was actually before the passage of Standard 8, was when we looked at it, and I brought this up back in October of I believe it was 21, was when we were first trying to fill that chief assistant position, looking at the salary and realizing that in a year or two, that senior assistant was going to top out higher than the person directly ahead of them. And so that was before Standard 8 was I was raising that issue. And that part needs to be addressed regardless.
It's broken.
Well, when we started this, I think when we looked at all the options going into, we wanted to make sure we were in a position to do all the standards.
Mhm.
And so I think we are. And thanks for being where we're at. I think some of those, I know some of the options weren't just to do the minimum and then see what happens. So I'm glad we're a little bit ahead of the boat on some. When I see the poaching and everything going on, I said, I understand that. The thing that just makes no sense is how do you compare a public defender in Wayne County to one in Marquette County and say that they're all equally, you have to use Lansing as the baseline because like I said, it's a different job in those different facilities, but I guess it's what we have to do. I can't imagine that there won't be some feedback.
And one of the things when we talk about poaching is the other thing is, I think that our model to this point has been a model for other counties. I know Shiawasske's reached out to me to get information about our system. Claire and Gladwin are in the process of starting a public defender's office for their joint circuit. Midland County is going to go with most likely a public defender's office starting in October. And so by doing this, we're also trying to keep people because of that poaching that's already going on with other counties that are going to potentially develop public defender's offices or things like that. I have that fear.
Well, I definitely want to stay ahead of this. Would rather be on the front end and the back end. I think, of course, it's a fear I've had ever since we started this is that the funding is going to start cutting back. But now this is going to be mandated. There's going to increase the funding for the whole state. It's going to have to be greatly increased. So they're going to be cutting back. We've been very fortunate in getting.
And I should have had the number
What
right
we
off the
had.
top of my head as to what the proposal was in the budget last week. And I don't remember what it was off the top of my
It
head.
was a lot.
I think it was
though.
224, 226, somewhere around there.
So yeah, so far, like I said, we've been getting. I hate to say what we asked for, but we've been very.
Yeah,
They've
yeah.
been very generous.
And then this is
and keeping
easy,
it-
right? This part's
this is
easy
easy.
because this doesn't have an impact
I mean,
on
I'm not-
general fund. Our
don't have
local
it.
share stays the same.
Yeah.
But you can better believe, and I've already had the conversation with Prosecutor Barbary, we're not gonna pay our attorneys at the public defender's office more than we pay the attorneys at the prosecutor's office. That structure doesn't hold water either. Then we're gonna be poaching from within. Right, it will happen. So we've got to be careful, and another reason to only do these positions now and set a plan for the other, because the prosecutor's office will need to be lifted up.
Yeah,
when
but
standard 8 is implemented for the public defender's office.
if you have those numbers, I'd love to see exactly how much is that's gonna cost the state. There might be something we could do, but would deal with our representatives as far as, because I can't imagine the number's gonna be astronomical.
Mhm.
And I will say, when we
It
look
is.
at our comparable, other counties might do different. So if we look at the actual state pay scale for the attorney generals, I think they have a level 15A, B, and C, a level 16A and B, a supervisor, and I think there's 2 supervisors on top of that. We didn't go me at the very top supervisor and everything like that. We went 15A, 15B, 15C, and 16A is the way that we, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but I believe we did 15A, 15B, 15C, and then 16. So I mean, there's a lot of leeway in terms of those larger counties can do it.
Different, yeah. I
They
understand.
can go higher than what we did.
And with some courts still zooming, you can be in Marquette and handle a Wayne County case. Don't forget that. That has almost leveled the playing field to some extent.
It is what it is.
There's a reason the state pulled standard 8 up, ahead of the other standards too.
And a lot of it has to do with the next thing we're gonna talk about with the attorney shortage too, so.
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. It's very much related.
All right.
I don't have any more questions. Do you? Anymore?
No, so got some work to do for the summer, for October 1st. Right. Make a motion, I move to bring forward the approving the salary. Yep, Isabella County Public Defender position as a non-union employee, wage scale, pay grade 19.5. And the salary, of Isabella County Chief Assistant Public Defender position is a non-union employee, wage scale, pay grade 17.5. Effective in the current pay period in regards to the implementation of Michigan Indian Defense Commission Standard 8.
And I will support that. Any more discussion?
Commissioner England, to answer you guys' question, the $72 million increase over the 2023 Michigan Regional Defense budget to total $220.9 million.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Any more discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the same. The motion has passed. We'll move this forward to the work session, so. Okay, next up, consider entering into the addendum to the agreement for attorney services for the indigent individual, October 1st, 2022 to September 30th, 2023. To incorporate the fee structure for the assigned counsel assigned to certain juvenile cases effective February 15th, 2023, and authorize board chairman to sign the same. We have Hausman and our court administrator with us today. You've been with us in a while.
Haven't. That's good. I'm not asking.
No, this is admin task,
You're only supportive here.
but yes,
Okay.
they have to
Make it
help
in-
me with the terminology because I don't understand all the acronyms, but I understand the need.
Public defender Hausman, I like you bring in the big guns when you need support. So.
Indeed, indeed. So basically, as the staff report says, this issue was born out of attorneys dropping off the MAT contract. I just don't even want to breathe how many are still on there for fear of jinxing us. It's very few. And then the courts having additional issues. In part, we believe because we haven't adjusted pay for juvenile cases in a long time. There just hasn't been any motivating or interest in attorneys taking those cases. Now, probate judge does have the ability to appoint those cases, right? He can just say, you're taking it, but we recognize that's not the culture we probably want to have in the environment where there's less and less attorneys. Now, whether it's the great resignation, and attorneys are just leaving the field, whether there's not new ones coming in, whether, people are leaving or whatever it is, it's the perfect storm right now of how do we get more interest in attorneys to take these cases. Courts, judges and Carrie and Tom and I met probably around the Christmas time, somewhere around the holiday season, and decided maybe the best thing to do would be increase the reimbursement for certain cases. And those are spelled out in your staff report. And the mechanism to do that, we talked about a separate probate agreement for juveniles, but how the county council wanted to handle it, as you'll see in your packet, is 2 addendums to the current MAC agreement. One would be an addendum where anyone still a party to the agreement would sign on to the new terms for the new juvenile rates. And anyone who was a new party to the agreement would basically sign the addendum saying, I'm a new party to that agreement that also has those new rates. It's important to understand that the judges, the trial court has the ability to set these rates. It's not a fee or a fee structure that the Board of Commissioners sets. Trial court can do this. The only caveat is they have to stay within what they're budgeted for in general fund. So I just don't, I don't want to get into a discussion about what the rate is. This is what judges agreed on. This is what the rate is. And they do have a good plan. Administrator Curtis put together a great plan so that this will stay in budget, given the caseloads that have been the trend of recent years. We didn't just willy-nilly say double the fee, you know, or something like that. It was analyzed, so. Am I forgetting?
So I think you covered
something?
it very well. Last year, well, the court just took over assigning those and paying those. The public defender's office had been doing it. So there was a whole little hiccup with the MIDC funding, and because Tom's staff is 100% funded and neglect, abuse, and delinquency cases are not currently part of that program, their staff could not continue to administer it. That's the short version. So we did take that back over, but that line item for these appointments was always under the court. So it was one of those sort of combined kind of things that they basically paid out of a line item that was assigned to the court. So, but last year we left, the budget was 150,000. We left on the table just about 100,000. So this change that we're implementing, I don't foresee is going to require us to come back and ask for more money or anything like that right now. But I always caution you that it only takes one thing to throw things completely out of whack. So, but I don't see that happening right now. And I just mentioned to Nicole that I found another little avenue that we can probably get some of these fees paid. It happened to be a mistake that I made that brought that to our attention. So I forgot to put something on a proposed grant that we thought could only be used for training attorneys. And their example had one sentence at the end that said, pay for neglect abuse attorneys for youth and parents. So it was super exciting. So we're going to try to explore that a little bit further and hopefully get some more funding for that will, you know, alleviate the county's end of this. But we have only 3 attorneys on right now for neglect abuse cases. One of them is somebody who likes to take cases for a couple months and then not take any for a couple of months. I think just so they can get a little break and that kind of thing. So really only have 2 full-time attorneys. I think Mr. Shirley at some point is going to announce his retirement in the next few years. So I'm very, very worried about that because he does an outstanding job, but his P number is in the 1s or 2s.
Oh,
Yeah.
my.
So I think it's in the low 2s, might be like 203 or something. So that's a very, very low P number. We're in the 8s now, and P numbers are the numbers assigned to attorneys once they pass the bar exam. So we're in the late 8s now. So he's been practicing a very long time. So that, I guess that's the point I want to make. It brings a really high level of expertise that we would love to keep.
And eventually, in the next couple of years, they're doing a study to determine what the added cost to MIDC would be to take over at least juvenile delinquency cases. So in the next couple of years, I anticipate that that's going to get swallowed up by our office.
That was gonna be one of my questions. It seems like he spent all the effort in the juveniles. It's just been kind of patchwork and helter-skelter all over the place, and I'm glad to see there was some discussion that they're actually gonna put some focus on there. I know if they change the age, that put a big stress on there.
We've had some challenges with that with a few of our cases. One in particular.
I know I'm going a little bit off track from what we hear here.
Well,
It's
kind
all
of.
connected
But
though.
It is.
But
It is.
since I got you here, and I know the last time we were here, we were talking about the childcare fund, and you were initially I said, oh, that's great, but the housing situation, I've had more people talk about that, the mental health and the juveniles and the facilities in this county. It's really kind of I don't know what the word to use, but it's really,
crisis. It really is.
it's really bad, and I don't think I haven't heard that it's improved any.
Well, we've been very fortunate with a couple of youth that have some pretty serious charges to the extent that they're not in juvenile court anymore. They've been moved over to circuit court, so now they're juveniles charged as adults. So we've been very fortunate that a local county agency has been willing to house these young people. Because they don't have to, they can cherry pick whoever they want. So our juvenile probation over the years have built really good relationships with these facilities. And so that really helped us. So it is frightening because sheriff, will tell you, he has nowhere to put a juvenile over there other than sitting in the undersheriff's office is where I think they typically sit, which is not ideal by any means because they can't separate sight and sound. So it's something that we're very much aware of.
I do like the little silver lining of maybe some starting to fund it though, right? I mean, we can talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, but to finally see some funding seep through
Somebody
for it is
actually-
exciting.
Talking about it, some just seem to be ignoring it all the time, because since I've been on here, we've talked about it, nothing's been.
And that would only be for the neglect abuse. So I
Right.
think probably what eventually will happen is that child care fund might absorb, it's not directly the child care fund, but it's all the same kind of thing. Might fund the NA cases, the neglect abuse cases. And then I think, as Tom mentioned, the delinquency are eventually going to come under MIDC. But so hopefully will continue, but we all worry that they're going to stop all this funding and then it's all going to come back to the county's responsibilities. Because historically, that happens.
Historically, it does.
One problem at a time.
Yes.
But we really need to try to support our attorneys that we have and pay them a little more because some of these neglect abuse cases are troublesome for sure. And at $300 a piece, even at $600 a piece. I was a local attorney who could go do a couple criminal cases and make twice that. Probably wouldn't take these really difficult, emotionally draining cases either.
And the number of hearings involved in those cases, because you have the initial hearing, you have review hearings every 90 days. So in a year, you're gonna be on that case in court 5 times, 6 times. So you're paying them $300 a year for those 6 hearings.
Yeah.
Not including the preparation for the hearing.
And that's if things go as planned. If they don't, then there's motions and trials and terminations and all of those things that are paid a little bit differently, but still not enough for the extent of investment that's involved. So
And one thing we've tried to do, doesn't always work out, but what we've tried to do is, in most of those cases, there's also a criminal case that goes along with it, because that's what undoubtedly, leads to the removal of a child. And so we've tried to give that person the same attorney, so that they're handling both neglect and abuse case as well as the criminal. And we did that, number one, so that they would have one attorney to have to deal with, because I would say nobody wants to deal with one attorney, let alone 2. And so we tried to work it out that way so that they're not only getting paid for the protective case, but they're also getting the hourly part under the MIDC standard. And so we've tried to work it out that way as best we can. Sometimes it doesn't always work out.
and in neglect abuse cases in particular, each parent is assigned an attorney. It can be the same one. And then there's a guardian ad litem assigned for the children. Usually it's a shared one for all of the children, but sometimes there are issues like if you have different parents or that kind of thing, you might have 2 fathers, 1 mother, and 2 kids. Now you're at 2 dads have an attorney, 1 mom has an attorney, and then the kids have an attorney. So you're at 4 attorneys. Wait a minute, we don't have enough attorneys to even manage that right now. So, those are the kinds of things that are pretty problematic. And we're not isolated to that problem.
I have no more questions.
Learning a lot.
Me too. Thank you both for being here. I couldn't have done that without you.
All right, I'll make the motion. I move to bring forward the addendum to the agreement for the attorney services for indigent individuals, October 1st, 2022 to September 30th, 2023. Incorporate the fee structure for assigned to certain juvenile cases effective February 15th, 2023 to work session next Tuesday.
And I will support that. Any more discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the same. The motion has passed and we will proceed to move this forward to the work session. So, okay, the last item up is considering enter.
It's
Oh,
the
say-
other, it's kind of one of those things where there's
Oh, it's
two.
the
votes.
Two of them, yeah, you-
I'm like, wait,
We're not done yet, guys.
I'm still here.
Are you guys leaving? I wait a minute. This might be a double.
I'm still up here.
I said, I thought that they were different, but maybe not.
Yeah, it's just the other addendum. So you
Yeah.
know how I said one was for attorneys who are on the contract to sign out. Yep, this is for new attorneys to become a party to the contract. So
Anyways, I better read it.
Okay.
it would
Consider,
have made for one long motion if we'd have done it all in one.
consider entering item, our last item is consider entering into the addendum to the agreement for the attorney services for the indigent individual October 1st, 2022 to September 30th, 2023, and to add assigned counsel as an additional party to the agreement effective February 15th, 2023, and authorize the board chairman to sign the same. Since we've had an explanation, I don't have any more questions on that one. Pretty similar.
I will say I have a meeting this week with two individuals who might be joining the contract, so
Excellent.
excellent, my fingers crossed.
Great. All right. Go ahead and make the motion. Wait, since we've had,
All right, I'll support that.
Nice.
Any more discussion? All in favor will vote. Favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. It has passed and we'll move that forward to the work session and thank you very
Thanks.
much. You turn our table now.
Thank you.
Once again, thank you.
Please instruct me each time because I try to.
yeah,
Don't follow my lead ever. Good advice.
Thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy your Tuesday.
Okay, we're
Yeah.
coming. Yes, we're coming down to the end of the meeting. Announcements. I have none. Commissioner, do you have any
None.
announcements? Administrator. Okay. At this time, I'd like to do one last call to the public. Is there anybody physically in the room that would like to comment at this time? I see no one raising their hand or no one available. Is there anybody online or on the phone?
Not at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I will close the call to the public and I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you.